Good morning. So today's mystic, which has not been an uncommon one in our experiences of mystic immersions, is Teresa of Avila. And so Teresa was born in 1515. She was born in a time in Spain when there was a lot of new branches of Christianity happening. I know if you look at it theologically, in certain ways, it looks like people were leaving the church. But now, as we look at it with Anabaptists and Lutheran and Calvin and all the other many sects that were coming about at this time, that if we look at it with different eyes, we can see that Christianity is just diversifying into groups that can preserve the charism of Jesus in the way that they feel inspired. So she was born during that time. And one of the factors that's not oftentimes taken into account when we look at the times of a person is that there wasn't a cell phone and there wasn't newspapers being printed, and there were many forms of communication that we have had in the past 200 years that didn't exist back then. And in Spain, you have mountain regions, and you have a difficulty for the Spanish to be in direct contact with what might be coming out of Rome. So Rome's in charge, right? And you have the Council of Trent happening during her lifetime, and the Inquisition, and lots of things happening. But you don't have the full story necessarily coming to the communities or to the cities. And this is so much so that actually Philip II, who was king during that time, that Teresa of Avila looked upon Philip as though he were like the Pope. So her fidelity when it came to church was much more country bound to Spain than it was to the infrastructure of the Catholic Church. That can be very unusual, right? I mean, we think about Catholicism now and how the understanding of the structure influences all the different countries. But back then it would have been different. It would have been different. So with that in mind and in heart, Teresa of Avila has many qualities that I was thinking that I could really address and go into this morning. But what I would like to look at is two qualities: her practicality and her audacity. You know, she is renowned. She is renowned for her mystical experiences. She is renowned for her charism, for the way she drew people to herself without trying. You know, women who aspired to be mystics flocked to be part of her communities. And she approached spirituality as, and I love this about her, very explicitly saying, not everyone is meant to have visions. Not everyone is meant to be caught up in these particular kinds of states that she experienced. And so in her practicality, she helped, and she was very verbal, as you know, because she's got so many writings. She helped those in her culture understand that union with God wasn't necessarily about that it oftentimes happened, but it wasn't about that. And even in light of that, she did believe that everyone could progress and grow in their union in such a way that the effort and effortlessness of their times of communing with the beloved would be more or less given how devoted they were, given how diligent they were, given the progress that they could make. So on one hand, she says, not everyone's called to be a contemplative, if you will. That some people, because of their temperaments, their natural dispositions, and that's usually the reason she applies to. Other times, just simply because it's not meant to be. But that isn't a sign of union with God or not. And that even in light of that, a soul can actually progress in the internal and interior states of prayer, of quiet, of communion with the beloved. It's interesting because she had this contest once where she invited a lot of different men that she knew that were confessors. John of the Cross is one of them, to give their answer to a question. And John of the Cross spoke as though everyone could easily be a contemplative. And that was the reason that he didn't win the contest. So, with whatever his response was to her question, he was laying out this call, this divine call he believed everybody had. And he's like, yeah, John, she said in her answer, John just writes as though everybody's meant to be a contemplative. And she didn't believe that. Now, that's using the word contemplative lightly, not in the way that we use it or the way I use it. So when we look at that practicality, then where then lies the reason for her audacity? What is she hoping for? Her audacity comes about because, and this is where she was heretical in that time. Her audacity comes about because she believes that God dwells at the center of the soul. When she speaks in her writings, if you looked at the diversification of her writings, you would see that she says that we are meant to be one with God, and that if only we knew the beauty of our souls, if only we knew inside what was there, and His Majesty who sits at the center of our crystalline being. She even gives images that give you a sensibility, a connotation of sacred geometry in some of her writings, with the way things are crystal. And in that, she is given a reason for great confidence, a confidence that's audacious. Now, she doesn't connect the dots between God being at the center of the soul and implicitly what that means. She doesn't say it verbally in her writings that I have found. But what's contained there implicitly is that if God is the center of the soul, then that is a part of our being that necessarily must be part of our realization process. And she doesn't believe that aspect, that God will ever go away. She does write in certain places that we could lose God. I mean, she did believe that the Lutherans were taking people to hell, or at least she speaks that way. But she does believe about her concern for the salvation of the Native Americans in the New World that she's told about by her brothers. So she does believe that a soul could be eternally separated from God, but she doesn't believe that God ever ceases to be at the center of the soul. Interesting, right? It seems like a real big contradiction there. And maybe it was something that she never really reconciled. But in that, then, she knows there's a way because of this God presence at the center of the soul. And in that knowing, she is spurred to audacity, and she mainly writes to her sisters, but she encourages them to knock without ceasing, to give themselves every opportunity to come into contact with, to have union with this beloved at the center of their being, and to know that it's possible to get there. In her mansions, the final place is coming to this place. And she believes that we come there very different ways. So the way I come there is going to be different the way than you get there. And we use our faculties and we use our whole selves in that process, and we discover what works for us in allowing us to progress. Now, while she doesn't want us to measure progress, she does seem to give a lot of descriptors about the process, descriptors of if we're wanting to know where we are in our status as a mystic. She does give a lot of words to help us identify where we are at any given time. And I want to just give you like one sentence descriptions of her explanation of the 4 waters of prayer. But before I do that, while she'll say, not in these writings, but in other writings, that you can attain to a union where there's a spiritual marriage that does not end, she does seem to shine a light that we will move in and out of these internal states. You know, we may experience effortlessness and then there will be effort. And so she does kind of give us some sense that it's not just a linear process. But she's very, very descriptive. And in her 4 waters of prayer, they basically come down to this. And the first is that in our relationship with God, in our contemplative moments, we're needing to use a bucket. We're doing a lot of work to walk to where the water is. And the water is the taste of the divine union. So we use a bucket to walk to a stream, to gather water from a lake. And so we put in the effort, but we obtain the water and it's attainable. The second is that there is a water wheel, meaning that it's able to get more water quickly. Maybe we don't have to walk as far. Maybe we don't have to even pick up the bucket. The bucket can be on the water wheel and attain the water very easily. The third is that the water becomes like a stream towards us, and the use of aqueducts would have been in her time and would have been a popular way to route water to an area. It would be like that. The water would then be streaming towards you and you don't have to walk with a bucket. And the fourth would be like being a torrential rain happening. So in those descriptors, she gives her sisters a chance to recognize where they are at any given moment. Why? So that they can be practical, realistic, and so that they can be audacious. Not discouraged, but audacious. If they're at the stage where they need to carry the bucket, they know it and they do it. And they do it with a confidence that union with God is possible. So she, with her writings in her communities, like most leaders in those ages, she fell in and out of support and favor, given whoever was in charge at the time, given politically who was in charge, and given in the spiritual structures who was in charge. So leaders in her order and also leaders in her country. They could play a big factor. Rome came in on that a little bit, but mainly she looked at things only from the Spanish. And within that structure, she was able to have a relative amount of freedom. She was able to publish a lot. She founded 17 monasteries. She did not get turned into the Inquisition until she was much later in her years. She was 60 2, I think, when she was turned into the Inquisition. So she had all these years happening where she was never turned in. And so she was able to kind of move through her times. Although there were many challenges, one of them was not a challenge of hers, and that is that she was constantly persecuted. It doesn't mean others in her order were not persecuted, but she seemed to fly under the radar until the end. And then even in the end, many of her works were burned. But we have a lot of what she has written. And so I have a poem today for us to share that shows the practicality and audacity of her spirit. And what we're going to do today by way of the meditation with it is we're going to do a breath work. So let me share with you this poem, and then I'll share with you how we're going about the breath work. Now, breath work isn't something that she would have had a practice in, right? She wouldn't have known about different forms utilizing the body's capacities in these ways. She would have been much more likely to do something like Lectio Divina or mental prayer, or using one of Ignatius's methods of imagination, drawing the senses in, but actually using the body. She would have been much less familiar, if at all, of those practices. This is titled, If the Sun Took You in His Arms. When my mouth touched his, I became invisible, the way the earth would if the sun took it into its arms. The ecstatic death, I know. What can touch his exquisite form is not anything that can be seen. How do we make love to God? How does the soul make love to God? How does the soul make love to God? The heart has divine instincts. It just needs to be turned loose in the sky. Does not every angel know where God lives, and will beat on God's door all night if it is locked? There is a very subtle inward and outward exchange happening here that forms the kind of practical and audacious wisdom that she gives to us, right? Because she could be practical and be attached and set in certain beliefs and ways, or she could be audacious and have no practicality at all. But she brings to us this breadth and this wealth of the subtleness of the practical, audacious path that we are all called to see things for what they are. And in seeing things for what they are, realize union with God is possible. So for our breath work today, it's so that we'll open up to some of the subtlety of the message of this poem. And what we're going to do is we're going to, when we close our eyes, we're going to bring our attention to a 4-count breath, a 4 on the inhale and a 4 on the exhale. And I'll guide that. 4 on the inhale, 4 on the exhale. And then we're going to hold our breath out. And as we hold our breath out, I'm going to read a line. Then we're going to do the breath again. And we'll hold the breath out again, and I'll read another line. So I invite you to close your eyes. And this is so using the practicality of the body, we may open up audaciously to taste the divine. So after the next exhale, begin counting Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale all the air out of your body and hold. When my mouth touched his, I became invisible, the way the earth would if the sun took it into its arms. Oh. If you get the urge to breathe, take a little sip and exhale fully again. Now we begin again. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale fully, letting all the breath out of you as much as you can. And hold. The ecstatic death, I know. What can touch God's exquisite form is not anything that can be seen. How do we make love to God? How does the soul make love to God? If you need a breath, take a little sip and exhale fully again. Begin the 4 count. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And let all the air out again. And hold. Does not every angel know where God lives, and will beat on God's door all night if it is locked? How does the soul make love to God? Last round. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And fully exhale. Holding the breath out. And now begin to release white light moving up the spine, up the crown, and let the inhale follow. Follow the white light all the way up to the crown and hold. Inhaling fully. Ready. Open your eyes. Rub your hands a little bit so you feel that you're back fully in your body. And maybe you can invite Teresa today to walk with you and show you how you can be practical and audacious at the same time. Blessings, my friends.